Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Tezaveh, you should command. And it begins in Exodus chapter 27, verse 20. This week's portion is devoted almost exclusively to a description of the sanctification of the priests for the work that they will do, for the service that they will do in the tabernacle, with a very detailed discussion of the various garments that the priests wear and how they will then become sanctified as priests, the various ceremonies that they undergo. Now, we know that later on in the Bible, and specifically in the book of Numbers, in chapter 3 here, actually more specifically verses 11 through 13, we have a description of the fact that God commands Moses to take the Levites from within the children of Israel instead of the firstborn. That initially the firstborn was sanctified to perform the service, to bring sacrifices upon the altar. But later on in the book of Numbers, this is switched and the Levites take the place of the firstborn. There's a tradition, a Jewish tradition, that ascribes this switch to the sin of the golden calf. Whereas the entire nation of Israel sinned in the golden calf, it was the Levites that stood apart, and indeed when Moses comes down from Sinai, it is the Levites that stand with Moses as against the rest of the children of Israel that are engaged in this frenzy of worship of the golden calf. Now the priests, of course, are part of the tribe of the Levites. Both Moses and Aaron are part of the Levite tribe. They are direct descendants of Levi. And the priests in our Torah portion are designated as Aaron and his 4 sons. And that is in the beginning of chapter 28. We have their names, Nadav, Abihu, Elazar, and Itamar. So the question, of course, is, and of course their children after them will continue to be the priests. So the question, therefore, is, if indeed before the sin of the golden calf, the firstborn are the ones that perform these rites, and only afterwards, or at the very least afterwards in the book of Numbers, when we see the Levites taking the place of the firstborn, what exactly is going on here in designating Aaron and his 4 sons as the priests and those who will engage in the service in the tabernacle? And there are actually 2 distinct points of view with regard to the positioning of these chapters in the book of Exodus, both the chapters of Truma and Tezaveh, with the portion that we read last week that discusses the commandments with regard to the building of the tabernacle, the vessels, etc. And that begins in Exodus chapter 25 and continues now through until we get to the story of the golden calf, which we will read about in next week's portion. There is one opinion that believes that actually these chapters having to do with the building of the tabernacle and the instruction to Aaron and his sons and the entire service of the priests actually chronologically comes afterwards, that it was as a result of the sin of the golden calf that we have a tabernacle, that we have all these laws to begin with. Of course, that means then that we are taking the order of the Bible as it is written and saying that in actual fact, historically or chronologically, these chapters happened later. If that's the case, that solves our problem, because if indeed the priests or the Levite tribe became replaced the firstborn after the sin of the golden calf, if we switch the chronology, we solve our problem. We say first comes the golden calf, and then God starts giving the commandments having to do with the tabernacle and sanctifies the children of Aaron within the context of replacing the firstborn with the tribe of Levi. The other point of view takes the story as it is written in the Bible and believes that it is indeed written in chronological order. So then what do you do with the priests? One of the explanations then with regard to this particular section about the designation of the priests, that even so long as the firstborn were serving in the tabernacle, there still was a separate category called priests. The sons of Aaron still had a very specific job, and indeed, while they served in the tabernacle, they were the ones who wore these very special clothes that we read about in this week's portion, and they're the ones that go through a very separate sanctification process, whereas the firstborn are sanctified by virtue of the fact that they're firstborn, and this is something we read about initially before the Exodus from Egypt, when as part of the slaying of the firstborn of Egypt, God says, in contrast to the firstborn in Egypt who I have slain, I am going to sanctify the firstborn of Israel. They don't need a special sanctification process, but at the same time, they do not wear the special garments that we read about here in this week's portion. So basically, this theory says that before the sin of the golden calf, there was worship going on by both the firstborn and by the priests. Of course, this didn't happen, this didn't take very long. This is more a theoretical discussion. What was supposed to happen as opposed to what indeed happened, because indeed the actual building of the tabernacle only took place after the sinning of the golden calf. So things basically got switched before they even had a chance to happen. But I think that what's interesting about this, though, because I think it represents a basic difference in understanding of what is the purpose of a priest and what is the purpose of the tabernacle. Is this something that was supposed to be from the beginning? God established a certain order of things. He believed that it was best for the children of Israel to have a group of people set aside as Aaron and his sons, a sort of elite with special garments, with a special sanctification process that would represent the children of Israel. And these people are sanctified by virtue of the fact that they are the sons of Aaron. It is indeed an aristocracy. Is this the ideal? Or indeed is the original ideal that the worship, the service, would actually be performed by representatives of the entire nation of Israel? For indeed, any given family can give birth can have a firstborn son. And any firstborn son, therefore, truly representative of everybody in the nation of Israel. There's no aristocracy here. There's no different sort of class. This is where the service is going to come from in the tabernacle. And I think this is a fundamental difference in outlook as to how service is going to perform, but I think it even goes beyond that. Because for those who see the service of the tabernacle, particularly of the priests, as something that came out of the Levi tribe, as something that came out of the sin of the golden calf, what they are indeed saying is that before the sin of the golden calf, God was willing to trust all of the nation of Israel. He believed and he trusted that every single person in the nation of Israel could be holy in a special way and serve God. What the golden calf, therefore, instructed all of us, perhaps God included, was the fact that no, that wasn't to be, that most of Israel was not worthy of this, that most of Israel would sin, and it needed to have a special class of people set aside for that position. It may also be, on the other hand, if we say that this was set out as it was from the beginning, that we needed a priestly class from the beginning, perhaps what that is saying is that God understood from the beginning that, perhaps even understood from the beginning that a sin of a golden calf was going to happen. And how did the sin of the golden calf happen? The children of Israel are looking for an intermediary. They're looking for a way to come to God that is not direct, because they are frightened from the direct contact. And therefore they seek a golden calf, which admittedly is a pretty silly intermediary, but this is what they were looking for. And perhaps in anticipation of this, God already set aside a separate priestly group of people, not coming from all of the nation, but coming from one very holy man, Aaron, who had already proven himself to have a very direct and close relationship with God, and that man would instruct his children in a very specific and personal way so that they would be able to actually represent the people in the service of God, because they had something that not everybody had, that there was a need for a very special class and a very special type of person in order to assist the children of Israel to come closer to God. And I think this dichotomy between the two different approaches are really not so much a contradiction, but presenting two different possibilities. And it was really up to the children of Israel to decide which possibility they were going to adopt. Unfortunately, with the sinning of the golden calf, it became very clear that taking people from throughout the nation of Israel was not going to work, that we needed people of very special merit, people who were like Aaron and his descendants, who would be able to step in and represent us to God, because unfortunately so many of us were just not worthy. Shabbat Shalom from Samaria.